Binge eating is bad enough when you're already out of shape. But binge eating after you already lost weight, man, this feels different. Because now it's not just an extra slice of pizza or an extra candy here or there, it's full on self betrayal. And honestly, I think this is the part nobody really talks about. Most advice is just about triggers, healing your relationship with food, motivation, and all that stuff. Sometimes the real problem is what happens after the slip. The binge is one thing, but the drift after it is what actually starts killing your progress. And I'm saying this as someone who was 120 kilograms back in May 2025. I quit smoking, I started running, I dropped down to 100 to 98 kilograms, and then I got stuck while binge eating more than I want to admit. So, in this video, I want to talk about why binge eating after progress feels worse, why I think most advice misses the point, and what to do when slip already happened so it doesn't run into full drift mode. First, why it hurts so much. Well, you already proved that you can do it, right? Because before starting working on yourself, like for example, you were enjoying like a full extra large pizza with the tops and fillings and everything, and you would enjoy an extra bag of chips and liter of soda or beer or whatever, that you wouldn't feel as guilty, right? Because there was no progress to be made then. It was just full on NPC mode. But then you started to work on yourself, you made progress, you saw results, and then your body kind of automatically walks you to the shop, you buy something or two or three, and then you eat, and then you feel a lot of shame and guilt about it. And that's what makes the slip worse, because you don't want to bury all this work that you've done. Because just like you, I don't want to bury my whole hard work and effort under junk food and high calorie shit. And when you get certain result, let's say you got some definition in your body, then you binge eat for a day or two, and then instead of it becoming an event, it turns into a full identity crisis. All the runs, the liftings, the things that you thought about yourself just collapse under this one event. And it makes sense because there was so much effort put in, and wasting it feels like betrayal. But the thing is, binge is one thing. Like, let's say you binge for 2 or 3 days. This happens. It happens with everyone all the time. But the binge itself is not the problem. It's the drift that comes after it. The difference between the slip and the relapse is just the decision that you make. Will you return on track? So a slip is, let's say you had the food for like 1 or 2 times, and then you went back on track, you started working out again. And I'll use myself as an example in this case. Like I mentioned, I lost 20 kilograms, right? And so I did that with running and being very conservative with my calories and stuff like that. I reached to 100, I got stuck. I honestly got stuck because I started binge eating every time I felt sad, stress, work. And that's what the problem with most of the advice on YouTube, honestly. It doesn't address the other aspects of life that make you binge eat in the first place. So the difference between the slip and the relapse is what you do next. Do you keep your training on point? Do you keep protein intake on point? Do you keep tracking macros? Do you analyze what happened and make sure you don't fall in the same situation again? That's the question. Relapse basically is saying no and just quit training and identify as, I am not a runner anymore. I'm not someone who's working on themselves. I am just living randomly, and that's it. And that's where the drift happens. A few years later, you already forgot who you were. That's exactly what happened to me actually in 2022 when I got married. I got very comfortable and I didn't work on myself. And that's when I actually drifted. I was 95 kilograms, not even 100, but I drifted all the way to 120 because I neglected myself more. But the moment I started to reclaim control and make sure I get the result that I'm looking for, which is to lose as much fat as possible, build an aesthetic body, and be able to do a handstand, I had to sacrifice all the comfort that I was in. Before, I was completely drifting. Now, what happens is that it's just a slip. Now, here's what you can actually do about it. First, let's stop obsessing about triggers, emotions, regulation, all that shit. All I see on YouTube, honestly, is just a general advice that is too obsessed on metrics, statistics, and it completely neglects the fact that most of the people who binge eat are actually adults in their late 20s and mid 30s and mid 40s even. The videos neglect the fact that these people, like me, have jobs, have situations. Some of them are married, some of them have financial stress, some of them are in a competitive field, like in sales, for example. And so stopping obsessing about finding a perfect condition to fight the binge eating is what matters here. because the solution needs to be flexible enough to be applicable to specific people who are suffering from this problem. I have a friend who is 150 kilograms. He binge eats because he works in sales and he has hard decisions to make every day with clients, and he doesn't have time to diet and think about what to eat because he's also married and he's also managing financials because he's recently married. And me in a similar situation, but I honestly binge eat more when I am more comfortable, when there is not much like financial stress and much social stress. When I am relaxed, I tend to disrupt my peace while binge eating. And so, if I have to say one advice that works well, I would honestly suggest what worked with me in the past. The exact way that I lost my first 20 kilograms is enforcing hard boundaries, is rebuilding the boundaries. I reinforce them, make them concrete. For example, when I was quitting smoking, I was then married and she was a smoker, and all my colleagues were smokers, my friends, everyone. And I failed multiple times consecutively because I was saying no and then learning how hard it must be. And here's the thing, the harder the no it was, the better the result was. Because at first I was negotiating and learning how flexible I should be. But when I apply full measure, I just go all in. I say no, no matter how hard it gets. Under pressure, there is a birthday, there is fun, there is pressure, there is fun times, there are friends, there is wife, there's all that. Yet I don't smoke. It's reinforced every day. Okay, it's hard, it's not easy, and it's not supposed to be easy. Yet it's simple. And when you have enough self-respect to say no under any circumstance, that's how you actually conquer any behavior that is disrupting your peace. And three, and most importantly, return with precision, not drama. What I mean by that is, even if you are binge eating right now or close to binge eat actually, I want you to first contain damage. Here where becoming more precise matters. But when applying boundaries, it can get very messy and sometimes you don't know what you're doing, and that's fine. And that's where being precise, not dramatic, matters. When you binge eat and you spot yourself in the middle of it, then here's what you do. First, you contain the damage. You first make sure, even if it happens and your body is having very low resistance towards it, then there is how you contain damage. First, hit your proteins. Protein is the most important for you when you are losing weight. So that must come first. You hit your proteins, and then if the resistance is low towards binge eating, then you move to step 2, which is to minimize the damage by making sure you have the least expensive choice. For example, let's say that you have pastry, a small biscuit, or a bag of Cheetos, right? Even if you get all the three, make sure to finish as low risk as possible. Make someone join you. Eat small pieces of everything and throw the rest away. Or if you are on your own, then you can select one and move on. Like today, I'm craving this, just get this and move on. Then what happens in the future, you are way more in control than you used to be, because now you know what to do next. So the failure here becomes a lesson instead of a verdict that destroys your progress. That is my plan going forward in the next 3 months, to make sure I go from 100 kilograms to 90 and even 85 if possible. I can and I will. And keep this in mind. One bad night is not what destroys you. What destroys you is giving that night too much power. That's it for me in this video. Stay safe and take care.